Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Brian back again with another episode of the podcast. Today, I sit down with one of my good friends from junior high and high school who I lost touch with for a little while, but we've reconnected in the last couple months. His name is Andy. He's a great guy, and he's really excited to talk about ADHD and his journey with ADHD. It's something that he's had for a long time since he was younger, but just never really was able to manage it until recently. So it's going to be interesting to talk to him about different strategies, how he's managing the ADHD in his life, how he's been able to kind of progress and grow in different areas that may have been stunted for a while just because of the disorder. And I think there's something valuable in this podcast for everyone listening, whether or not you're dealing with full-blown ADHD or you just have some minor attention issues and focusing issues. There's definitely some good content, some good strategies in here about focusing and just about attention for everyone. Andy's a really awesome guy, super funny guy, very engaged in the comedy scene in Philly. He's worked as a comedy writer before. He's worked at the Laugh House in Philly, and he also is a food blogger. So I'm going to post links to all of his social media, all of his content in the description box for this episode. And without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy my conversation with Andy Alexander. All right, guys, what's up? It's Brian. Welcome back to another episode of Brian Gets Deep. I'm here with my buddy Andy today, who I haven't spoken to in a long, long time. I mean, I knew him from junior high, high school. How long has it been, you think, since we've actually spoken to each other?
Spoken voice-wise, probably a couple of years. I remember us catching up a few years back when I was in New York, going in and out of New York a lot.
Yeah, it's been a while, though.
And after that, it was pretty just like, occasional, hey, how you doing, stuff online and stuff.
Totally. That's crazy, man. Well, so what have you been up to?
I don't think I've seen you in person in a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's definitely been since, the last time we hung out with any regularity was probably high school.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, like you were always kind of on the periphery. Like you weren't one of my close friends, but you were around. And I think it was the same for you too. Like you had your core group of friends, I had my core group of friends, and some of them overlapped, I guess.
Yeah, we had a lot of mutual friends that were good friends to both of us.
Totally. So, what have you been up to since high school, since those days?
High school? It's been, Jesus. I just went to my 10-year anniversary not
Holy
too long
shit.
ago, so there's and I was thinking about, I was thinking just about the same thing, what have I been doing?
Yeah.
I obviously, that I worked in the comedy scene for a long time. I started. I went to, first I went to Temple University, and then I started, needing money, like most people do, and I got a job at this comedy club called the Laugh House.
Okay.
And they were a pretty legendary urban comedian comedy club.
Nice.
A lot of big time names you hear about today.
I listen to like Joe Rogan's podcast and stuff, and I've heard him mention that club numerous times. So
yeah, it was pretty much one of the oldest clubs in Philly, and I got my long story short, I got my bearings there in terms of what I wanted to do in entertainment. I always knew that I wanted to write stories, and I wanted to do screenplays and stuff like that. So I started from the ground up, and I was a server there for a while, got to know a lot of comedians, and then I started befriending some of them, and then after a while, it was like, hey, I wrote this sketch, I wrote this short film or something, and comedians are always looking for something to give them a little acting experience, so they were always happy to oblige when I was like, would you star in some of my sketches? And I was doing that for a good amount of time, probably half the amount of time since we both left high school was me kind of traveling around from here to New York and getting to know people in the industry and stuff like that.
That's so fucking cool, man.
Yeah, thanks.
It's so cool because yeah. No, all I was going to say is it's cool. No, it's cool. What I was going to say is it's cool because comedy is always something that, I've watched from afar, and I get so much enjoyment out of and so much entertainment out of, and I think it's so, intelligent, and the way they, the way a good comedian can take apart a serious issue and get you laughing at things that under other circumstances anyone who saw you laughing at that would think you were a horrible person. So like they make it okay to poke fun at all of just the ridiculous parts of our society and just human nature in general. So it's so cool that you were able to just be around that and be a part of it.
Yeah, it was. I'm really fortunate to have met a lot of people that I've met and had some of the experience I had. But yeah, laughter, I hate to sound like a cliche, but obviously laughter is the best medicine for whatever ails you.
Yeah.
And what was that? What else was I going to say? I just had a brain fart. But
what are you doing now?
It's comforting.
What are you doing? Okay, awesome. So are you still in the comedy scene now, or are you doing something different?
Not as much as they used to be.
Okay.
Like I said, like if I were an actual stand-up comedian, I'd probably be a little upset with myself by not getting on stage as much as I don't. But I've never, that wasn't really ever my intention. My intention was to just become a writer, to write stories and do stuff like that. And comedy was probably the best solution, the best intro I had to doing that. It was basically me just like, I hadn't been on stage in a long time, and I've done it before because I wanted to see what it was like. But like I said, writing has always been my thing, and I never stopped doing that. It's just, a lot of my friends are moving on up, and they're going to New York. A lot of my friends are probably comedians that you see on TV now, and that's great for them. But I'm still chugging away on my stories. I'm still trying to find a way for me to kind of find my artistic expression, and I just stand up isn't for me. Getting on a stage and getting in front of people is just not for me.
Yeah, man. I couldn't imagine. I'd be like, I'd shit my pants. Like, and that's funny because like, coming from like a professional dance background and like performing all the time, you would think. But that's a whole nother animal to be able to just stand on stage and like talk and basically cast a spell on people. And it's a skill, man. It's an art. But writing is amazing too.
You of all people would be good at it. I feel like you don't have to be a miserable person to be a comic.
I know. No. I know. I realize that, man. One of my favorite comedians, this guy named Duncan Trussell, is like, he's a pretty happy dude, but he says just the most outlandish, ridiculous shit, and he's had darkness in his life, but I think he's come over it. So I know, but you think there's that stereotype, like there's the stereotype of like every comedian has to suffer,
Yeah, I feel like that's somewhat of a cliche. I feel like I've gotten firsthand of like what kinds of people there are, what makes a comedian, and of course in the media or when you're generally talking to someone about stand-up comedy, the first thing, one of the most common things you'll hear is like, oh yeah, comedians are actually really depressed. That's why they do this drugstore psychology analysis of comedians. Like, no, that's just what they're doing to make themselves feel good, or they're depressed. And yeah, that's true. That may be the case for a good deal of comics and stuff like that. And obviously, misery loves company. But there's a wide range of people, and you have to have you definitely have to have somewhat of a outward personality. And I kind of see that in you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to act like I'm totally oblivious to what you've been doing over the past couple of years. You're a pretty outgoing guy, and you're pretty positive, and you're much different than you were at high school. I'll give you that much.
Yeah, man. I wasn't always like this, and it takes practice, man. Like, and the other thing too, to become, and I always have to bring this up and put it out there. Like, what I put online is like, a couple seconds out of an entire day. So I have all the anxiety. I definitely go through periods of depression. I've dealt with that my entire life on some level, and yeah, man, being bullied growing up, obviously, like, you go through that stuff. But I don't know. I've just gotten to a place where I've just kind of said fuck it in so many different ways, and it's allowed me to, I guess, be happier overall because I just don't care. in the same way I used to, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, we all grow. We all become different people. But back home, back here, all of our mutual friends. That's pretty much that's the story behind Brian Henninger. That's whenever we talk about you, that's because I've known you, probably since I was in like 6th or 7th grade. You were probably a grade or two ahead of me.
Yeah.
And I knew what you were like, and I'm not. We'll save that for another podcast.
I was a fucking dude. I was an asshole. And we will save it for another podcast. But you know what? Like, me being an asshole, like, that came from I had a lot of pain, man. Like, I was really fucked up. Like, because of being bullied and being picked on because of my weight and shit, and that became a whole thing. That'll definitely be a whole other podcast in and of itself. But
yeah.
But I want to talk about you, actually.
But what I was saying, well, I'm sorry, but what I was saying is that's pretty much like I'll tie it all together. And we'll get into this too, because tying things together is kind of hard for people with ADHD.
Okay.
And getting to the point, really, like I said in my email. But
yeah, no worries.
Yeah, that's the story of Brian Henninger that I know of with all of our friends who really knew you. Was Brian was just like Brian was this angry kid who was like kind of an asshole and blah blah blah, and then one day he kind of just said, "Fuck it, I'm going to start dancing," and and then when I see you online, I'm very happy for you.
Oh my God, dude!
It's good to see you, and it's good to see you in that era. And like I've always been happy for you whenever we talk about it.
Thanks, man. But that's so fucking funny it makes sense. It definitely makes sense because what's like visible on like social media, it does appear that way. It does appear like I'm this demon child, and then one day I wake up and I'm like, I just want to dance, and then my whole life, and then my whole life turns around. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I mean, even from an outside, I'm sure it's crazier for you, but
yeah,
from an outsider's perspective, it's something you see in movies, or you see some kind of reunion episode of some like old TV show, like, oh, whatever happened to Brian? And he just kind of moonwalks in, stage left, he moonwalks in. Oh yeah, Brian was on SNL and dancing with Justin Bieber. Like, what? Didn't that happen to the dude in that movie It? Isn't that basically what happened? You know what I'm talking about? Stephen King's It.
Yeah.
The young kid was heavy set, and and he was always bullied and picked on, and then you fast forward 20 years later, the other half of the movie, and he's like this like track star, or he's like this like charismatic dude.
Yeah, man. It's just really funny, like looking back at all the phases we all go through as we grow up. Because like you have from the time you're in 6th grade to the time you graduate high school, even you probably have 7 or 8 different identities. You know what I mean? Like you can change your entire belief structure over a fucking song on the radio when you're that age. So
absolutely.
It's just funny, man.
Yeah.
But
I've gone through my obviously I've gone through my changes, and I know exactly where you're coming from. My identities have changed from high school to early college to dropping out of college to being in the comedy scene, and then to right now. That's why I reached out to you. Just because right now is pretty much probably the best year that I've had, and probably ever. I don't need to sound dramatic.
No, man, tell me about it. So what's led up to this, and like where are you at now, and just give me an overview.
All right. Well, I don't even know where to begin. Jesus. I'll start I'll start from the stuff that I sent you in the email.
Cool.
So basically, I was more or less an underachiever. After some point, comedy kind of dried up for me, and it wasn't just like, I decided to stop. A lot of people moved out of the city, and the comedy scene dried up. And
hold on though, before you say that, not to cut you off, what were you doing like after when you got into the comedy scene? What were you doing for work? Were you doing that full time? Was it part time? Like, did you have a day job? Kind of what did that look like?
My day job was the Laugh House. My
Okay.
day job was working at a comedy club
Gotcha.
full time.
Nice.
And the thing about people with ADHD is that like it's not just the common misconception is like it's just something that either makes you hyperactive or it takes your attention away, which is true for some people, and some people have more extreme symptoms than others. So it's weird, but where I'm tying that into what I was doing was I was working full time at the Laugh House, and then the comedy scene more or less dried up, and the Laugh House actually closed for a number of reasons, but mainly because one of the owners, it was ran by a husband and wife team. Basically, they owned it, and it was a family business. And the wife died. Her name was Miss Mona. She was great. She was almost like a mother figure to me. She passed away, and her husband didn't really have it in him anymore to keep running their business without her. So the Laugh House closed. I still tried writing about comedy and doing what I could and having my podcast and stuff like that back in the day, but things dried up, and you either graduate and move to New York or you stay in Philly. And I didn't need to go to New York for a stage because I wasn't a fan of comic. I was a writer, so I stayed here, and I got a regular, boring day job. I'm still doing it now, but it's nothing exciting. And
what are you doing?
I work for an apartment building, basically.
Okay, like a management company?
Yeah, basically. I work for a property management company. I work at the front desk of like one of the buildings.
Gotcha.
Basically like a concierge guy.
Okay.
There's more stuff to it than that, but I've been doing this for a long time.
Okay.
With the Laugh House, but yeah, one distraction led to another, and one incomplete project led to another, and I got sort of complacent. I'll say that for a number of years, where my bills are getting paid. I guess it's not so bad that comedy dried up on me, or it's not so bad that I started. I'm not writing as much, and it's not so bad that I'm doing this. So more or less, life got really boring and stagnant and unfulfilling for me for a number of years.
Gotcha.
And then you get older, and you start wondering like what's next, or what's life going to be like, and it kind of there are a few things that happened here and there, but if there was one moment in my life where I kind of was just like, where's this going? Where's this going for me? What am I doing? Where am I? I'm approaching my 30s soon. Probably 2 years I'll be 30, and I don't have much to show for it. And there's some more stuff that goes into it, but it kind of just dawned on me like where did the past couple of years go? And I wondered, and then I realized I haven't really gotten anything done for myself. I don't really have much to show for myself. So that leads me to the story about when I started really taking my ADHD seriously. So just to kind of, so I'm not like rambling on too much. We'll just make a long story short, and I'll say that I hit rock bottom. I was getting fed up with my day-to-day life, and I needed a change. And I just knew there was something up with me, but I just didn't know what it was for a while. It's this weird mixture of physical depression, but then in your head, these neurons are shooting fast. It's a neurological disorder. That's what ADHD is. So in my head, I was really speedy, and I had all these ambitious ideas, but I just knew in my heart that a lot of them weren't going to get finished. Whenever I start a project, even if I'm really into it, the stuff I want to do was just getting hard for me to do, and that's when I got really alarmed. Stuff I really want to do isn't even getting done because I'm kind of telling myself subconsciously when I start something, I'm like, you're not going to finish it. you know you're not going to get it done.
Did that manifest as like physical depression, like you would wake up and just like not have the ambition to like get up and do it, or was it more just the negative self-talk where like you'd have all these ideas and then before you would implement it your mind would start making up all of these things about what might go wrong or why you can't do it? Because I've definitely like I can empathize with that completely, man. I think a lot of people can too. I think the disordered part of it is where it runs out of, where you can control it. But I think everyone experiences that to some extent, too.
Yeah, absolutely. To answer your question, it was both. It was it became some sort of physical depression where I was just at a certain point, I was just getting done the stuff that I needed. I got up, I drove myself to work, and then I came back, and then, it was just this physical depression. I wasn't suicidal or anything. I wasn't. I guess the emotion part was coming more from like what are you doing? What's going on here? Like, what's wrong with you? And then after like 5 minutes, obviously something distracts you, and you're just fuck it, like whatever. Just worry about it another day.
Yeah.
And then,
did you ever have a panic attack?
Yeah, actually, the panic attack is. I'll say it was a panic attack. I don't know what the clinical term is for a panic attack is, but that's actually the rock bottom point for me.
Yeah, that happened to me as well, man. But what happened? What was it like when it happened to you? Because I try to like tell the story of when that happened and what it felt like physically and what I was going through, and it really feels like, to me, it felt like I was either gonna have a heart attack or I was dying. Like I don't know what exactly, or you really even how to categorize of it, but there was just this feeling of like impending doom,
Well, I've heard that that's what a panic attack is like. I was told that's what it is. It's like you feel like you're dying, and your body starts really feeling the fight or flight mode, and you just have this like feeling of impending doom. Imagine having that. Like a lesser version of it every day. Usually when you say the term panic attack, it's one like major episode that you have.
Yeah.
The panic, the anxiety for me was more like a slow oncoming thing. Every day after I came back home from work, it would just start getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And until one day I was leaving my job for lunch. At the time I was at this job that my girlfriend was able to pick me up from because she worked nearby, and we were going to lunch. And she just knew that I was in bad shape, and I wouldn't say it was a panic attack, if that's what we're going to agree the term is. I would say it's more like a mental breakdown or an emotional breakdown.
Yeah.
I think that's the term I'm really thinking of. So no, yeah, it wasn't a panic attack. It wasn't a mental breakdown. Just emotionally, I feel like my body, like in my mind and everything, was just at its lowest point, and I just started bawling my eyes out, and I just like it just all hit me at once, really hard.
Yeah.
Like this is where you are right now. This is where your life is. The stuff that you wanted to accomplish in life is it's not even a factor anymore. The stuff that even the stuff that you did accomplish before in comedy and all this stuff. It's gone, and it just weighed on me really hard, and I had to leave home. I had to leave work that day. I had to tell my boss, like, look, man, like I think I just made up an excuse, but I just went home, and I had one of the worst days of my life, and it was just like, imagine being totally unaware of where your life was going, and like you're kind of oblivious, or like there's something wrong, but not quite, and like or whatever, but then all of a sudden it just like hits you.
Yeah.
It's this aha moment, like it's like, oh shit, like this is where your life is. Oh, okay. Now you can start crying.
Yeah, you know what I you know what I thought of when you were describing that? I thought of how they teach chefs to cook frogs. They basically, if you throw a frog in boiling water, it's going to jump out. But if you put a frog in water and you slowly heat it up over time, the frog's going to die before it even notices. and it won't even think. Yeah, and that's exactly what I think is so I don't know if the term's ubiquitous, not ubiquitous, synonymous with disorders or things that happen to you in your life where you get off track, right? And you get off track, and like every day you said, like you'd have those thoughts and you'd be like, you just say fuck it and brush it off for another time. And I can totally identify with that, because that happens, and then all of a sudden over time everything's stacking up, and you don't have control over when it happens, but inevitably you get to this point where it's all staring at you in the face, and you can't even so consciously turn away from it anymore, and you have to deal with it,
Exactly. And I think me putting it off for so long made it worse, and but that's a great analogy, the frog analogy. I would say that was it for me.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I was there too, for sure. And it's crazy. Like, I think the more you become, once that happens one time, and you kind of, and I want you to get into like where you've, what happened after that, and kind of your road to now. But inevitably what happens is something like that happens, and all of a sudden you have this oh shit moment where you're looking at your life, and a situation that you didn't really think was possible is you're now you're there, and you never think you're going to be there really until you're there. And then once you're there, it doesn't feel like it in the moment, but you gain the benefit of wisdom because you've lived through it. So now you have a greater awareness of it, to where those things and those ruts and those patterns will still be a part of life, and they'll come up. I believe that. I don't think you're ever really free of like any type of, like, anything can happen at any time. Like, you can go through a period of time where like you injure your back, and then you have a bad sleep schedule, and then you're not taking care of yourself, and all of a sudden you can work yourself into a depression too for other reasons. So once it happens once and you climb your way out of it, you now have awareness of it, and you can kind of watch out for it. So I'm interested to hear like where you went after that, like what that clarified for you, and kind of what your next steps were, or what your first steps were.
Yeah. Oh, you're right in the awareness part. You're totally right in that. I'm more self-aware than I've ever been, and I'm always aware of that breakdown that I had, and I don't want to go back there. So I made some changes, and I really did some soul searching for a little bit, and tried figuring out like what exactly was holding me back, and then I started thinking about stuff like I started going way back into stuff that may have some underlying, that may be unresolved in my life. But one of the things that came up was I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was a child, from a child psychologist, and it was mainly because I was just way too hyperactive, really hyperactive. God forbid I drink a Pepsi or I drink anything. Oh my God, if I drank a Mountain Dew or something like that, it was just like, I'm sure it was hell for my parents. And even if it wasn't sugar or caffeine or something like that, it was me just being like full of energy and just not stopping. And I remember my parents taking a few measures to try to like subside it, and their last resort was they tried holistic stuff and natural stuff. I remember my dad giving me some kind of like syrup of some sort that was like supposed to kind of calm people down or calm down your nerves. But finally, they just kind of said, like, we need to take you to a psychologist. We need to see what's going on here. It's like you're just way too hyperactive. And then I took a test, and I was diagnosed with ADD. Back then, I think it was called ADD. I actually couldn't tell you, but it was ADD or ADHD, and they had an understanding of what was going on, and they put me on medication.
What did they give you?
And it was Ritalin when I was a kid.
Ritalin, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't remember much from that time. But my dad, when I talk about it with my dad now, he's just like, when we put you on Ritalin, we just knew that you had ADHD because like the Ritalin immediately works. you just totally calm down.
How old were you at this point?
And
You were 9?
around that age, around 8 or 9.
Okay.
And I don't know how Ritalin would affect me now. I'm not going to act like I'm an expert in all those medications now. Right now, I'm on Adderall.
Right.
And it's for me, it's what I need to kind of go about my day without what's the word I'm looking for? Without getting groggy, I guess.
Yeah.
It sounds like I'm saying that I need Adderall to like give me that pep, that extra pep that you would need.
No, it just makes you feel. You feel normal, right?
Exactly. And I'm an adult. You're an adult. I'm going on 30. We've all experimented with drugs in our life.
Well, I was going to ask you. I was like, do you smoke? Do you find that does marijuana exacerbate it, or does it make it better? Does it have any effect on it? Because I know different people have different things to say about that as far as ADHD.
Yeah. I wasn't even going to talk about marijuana. Marijuana is just one of the things that I've experimented with over the years. Marijuana is great for me. It's if I were to go on a holistic or all natural version of my daily treatment, I'm sure there'd be a lot more weed involved.
Yeah.
It just kind of zones me out where I can just sit and enjoy something without doing a million things at once. Meaning I can watch a movie or listen to music without fidgeting on my phone, without going on the floor and playing with something or fidgeting. Weed's been able to do that for me. Like when's the last time that you just sat and listened to music without doing anything? Like you sat there and just paid attention to music.
Yeah.
I can't speak for
not
everyone,
often,
but for me, it takes a long time to do that.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to just sit there on a couch and just listen to a song. Most of the time, it happens for me. I'm probably high, but I would say that it's not you never really think about that. Like people used to sit around and listen to turntables and just sit and listen to music, and almost no one does that nowadays.
Yeah, music is a mobile thing now. Music is like something you listen to while you're doing something else.
Right.
Something to help you pass the time. Music is it's rarely when's the last time someone invited you over their house to listen to music?
I know, man.
Hey man, having people over my house on Friday, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna just listen to music. And they're just like, all right, cool. And what else? We're gonna get some drinks, or we gonna, whatever. He's like, no, man, we're just gonna listen to music. We're just gonna listen to this new album, or whatever. And I feel like that would not turn people off. That would confuse someone. Like, all right, well, what else are we doing?
Yeah, we're so used to it. It's so true, man. And I've been trying to really focus on my life on doing things or carving out time where I'm only doing one thing at a time. Like I really try to avoid multitasking, and it's nearly impossible because, especially doing real estate, you get a bunch of emails, and I'm sure for you, at work, you're answering emails, you're answering the phone or whatever. So it's hard to just do one thing at a time, but I think it's so beneficial, man, just to give your brain a break from constantly calculating.
Yeah. I wish it was something that I could do easily. I'm sure I could do it if I wasn't on medication and I really set my mind to it. But that's another thing about ADHD. It's a stimulus problem. It's something up with our neurons that are just so used to high intensity things that average things are lost on us. Small talk, or just something pleasant and simple and nice that most people would probably get something out of. There's people with ADHD who just need something more.
Is that because are you future focused in that? Are you just trying to in some way? Does it feel like your brain's just trying to get on to the next thing, or is that what it's like?
No.
I'm just trying to put myself in your.
I I can only speak for myself when it comes to this, but what I'm talking about when people with ADHD need more is that, like, the metaphor that I use is fishing. Do you like fishing?
Yeah.
Are you into it?
Yeah, for sure. It's fun.
I can't stand fishing. I can't, like, something like that that's so low impact and like, you know, it's boring. It's boring to me.
Okay.
So, like, the thing with people with ADHD, is a very common thing, is that they're attracted to risky behavior. They're attracted to more intense lifestyles or intense activities, and that's a very common thing with kids and adults. Like, a lot of people with ADHD find themselves in a lot of trouble at some point in life, whether it be legal or personal or something like that. Like, they're just drawn to risky behavior because the average nice thing doesn't do it for us. And
right.
I mean, I won't go into too much detail, and again, like, I have plenty of stories, and we'll go into a different podcast if you want.
Yeah.
But I've lived it for, like, the things that I try to do in life are always, like, a little more intense, or, like, I'm not gonna, you know, I can't have a normal sex life. I need to push it as far as I possibly can and get away with it, you know, like, as much as I can with, you know, my girlfriend or whatever.
Yeah.
Or I can't just dabble in, you know, the occasional drug use. Like, I want to have a hard night, and I want to, like, you know, I want to eat Molly, and I want to go out and have a rager night, you know.
Wow.
There's something about the average nice thing, and I hate to, like, I wish there was an easier way to explain it, but we're just drawn to more extreme lifestyle and riskier behavior for sure. And thankfully, I've never gotten myself into too much trouble. I've always kind of, like, tried to keep myself in check because I know that I have a higher threshold for stimulus, for stimulating activities. So I always try to keep myself in check. For instance, with weed, you know, I always do it at night. I always smoke weed at night, and it's something to help me chill out at the end of the day and watch, so I can focus on the movie on the TV without constantly looking at my phone.
Right.
Yeah, like, that's what I'm talking about when it comes to, like, needing more extreme things.
So I have a question then, because I'm hearing this, right, and it's interesting because in similar ways, not to the same extreme, but in similar ways, I was never, you know, like growing up, like, look at a lot of the people we grew up with, and, you know, you like graduated high school and you went into comedy, and you really went for it and are going for it and trying to make something happen, where I feel like so many people that we grew up with just kind of went a very traditional path, which is, there's nothing wrong with it, but I could never imagine myself when I was in college. I would imagine you were the same way, like graduating and just going to work for some company forever. Like, I couldn't see myself doing that, and I feel like because of that, I am attracted to a more romantic way of living life, of, like, really believing, like, you can make shit happen and just trying to make it happen, and if you can make a living and support yourself doing it, then that's like the dream. So I feel a lot of parallels with you in as far as, like, being attracted to just life at a higher level, but then it goes to another level with you. So I'm wondering, because I know you mentioned a little bit ago that you were checking out that book Mindfulness by Joseph Goldstein. And I'm wondering if you got anything out of that, and if you've thought of, like, incorporating, you know, like, a mindfulness practice or meditation at all into your routine to kind of try to, I don't know, allow your mind a chance to settle, or if that's a practice that you would think would be beneficial. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
There was, in terms of mindfulness, I'm not going to lie, I didn't get too far into it because I'm not going to blame it on the ADHD, but I rented the book before my semester started in school. This is my first semester back in school.
Okay.
In over 6 years. But I've heard about mindfulness, and I've heard a lot about different I will tell you that a lot of the books that I did read, I probably read like 50 pages of it. A lot of their stuff resonated with me, and I'm not sure just because ADHD was and still is like the forefront of what I think about now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I'm not sure if it's a bias that I have because that's all I'm really trying to think about is like how it affects me now. Like it's something I ignored for most of my life. So once I had this personal awakening and finally saw the results of tackling it head on, that's all I was consumed with was just like ADHD, what it can do to you, and like I'm living proof that the bad things that can come from not treating it. So I'm not sure if the stuff from mindfulness was like I'm not sure if it was my bias that I'm like, oh, this relates to me, but I'm sure everyone has their own reasons for trying to relate to stuff like that.
Sure, man, of course.
Lessons in life and stuff like that. But mindfulness was a great. I wish I had more time to get into it, but I'm not gonna sit here and bullshit and say that it's really eye opening or it's life changing.
No, man, it's basically
changed my life.
Yeah, I think I think it could be beneficial because it's literally not even in the book, but just doing any type of activity where the point is to just focus on one thing. And no matter how horrible you are at it, no matter how many millions of times your focus gets pulled away from whatever you're trying to focus on, whether it's your breath or like walking or whatever, or just being mindful of whatever you're doing in front of you. Like if you're doing the dishes, just trying at least to just do the dishes. The thing about it is, it's not about your focus getting pulled away from what you're trying to keep your awareness on. It's the act of noticing that you're distracted. Like just the noticing that you're distracted is awareness in itself. So I think you sound like you're already doing that because you're focused so much on ADHD and how it affects your life and different ways you can tackle it or be more aware of it or be more accepting of it. That alone is just causing you to be more mindful of what's going on. So you're probably hyper aware of like your emotions, your energy levels, and like just where you are on a day-to-day basis.
I am to an extent, and on the other hand, I'm still working on it. I'm still working on myself. And in terms of being aware of when I'm distracted, that's pretty much my problem. It's like I'm not aware. It's
But do you become aware at any? But do you become aware at any point?
I do, and I've been good at it. I've been getting better at noticing it recently over the past couple months. I'll be consumed with a thought, or I'll start thinking about either a good thing or a bad thing. But I'll just get lost in my own head, and it takes me a few minutes to be like, oh, like you're doing something, man. You're doing homework, or you're trying to accomplish something here, your daily task. Like you gotta get back to it. I've been better in terms of that.
Now that moment that you realize that you're distracted, what happens in that moment? Do you feel like, do you beat yourself up about it? Do you feel guilty about it? Do you not feel any type of way? Do you go like, ah, fuck again? Or do you just slip back in? Like, is there any conscious thought there at that moment? Like, do you think, oh shit, here it is? Or no?
I used to beat myself up about it.
Okay.
Once I accepted that it was pretty much ADHD and I didn't know where to go from there, there was probably like a good month where I felt hopeless. I felt helpless. And I did notice it. I noticed when I would zonk out or my girlfriend would say something to me. She would say a couple things, and then I would just kind of like look back at her and be like, oh shit, I'm sorry, what? And we're mid-conversation. That's when I was getting self-conscious about it, and I was beating myself up about it. Now it's like I have a much better understanding of it, of ADHD and just myself in general. I'm not so much. I don't really. It doesn't really affect me the same way as much anymore. I will say that medication has helped immensely with it, but there's still the unconscious. There's this book that I'm reading about ADHD where she basically called it the blinks and blanks of ADHD, and it's these unconscious, these uncontrollable moments where you either blink or there's this like little flash, and it's been happening even while we're talking right now, where there's just a brief moment that I can't control, and I just kind of zone out, and I'm noticing the grooves on the floor, or what's this little thing on the side of my coffee table, or oh man, there's a lot of dust. I didn't realize that I needed to dust it in a while. When's the last time I started dusting?
Wow.
Where's my duster right now? And then I snap out of it and oh shit, I'm in a conversation right now.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. It's drifting without knowing it.
Got it. Yeah. So what's interesting, man? So any type of thing, like now that you just being more aware of it, and it sounds like because it does sound like you're making progress, you know what I mean? So you being more aware of it and making progress and building that awareness, that's why I'm so obsessed with the concept of mindfulness right now and what its implications are, because theoretically, and many people can do it, but every person is different. By working on that awareness and your ability to see things happening as they're happening and before you're caught in them, that's obviously the ideal. But the way you get there is, you get caught in your thoughts, and then you, like you said, you realize you're caught, and then you bring yourself back out of it, and then that happens over and over and over again, and slowly you start getting caught for less and less time. So before you'd be caught for 30 seconds or a minute, or on average, every time's different, obviously. Over time, that time becomes less and less. So the lag time between you getting caught in a thought and your higher self, your higher consciousness, not the part of you that's caught in the thought, but the part of you that can see outside of that, the more that part of you becomes aware, you can actually see this shit happening. So it's going to be really interesting for you to notice, I feel like, over the next couple months, a year, as you continue progressing, because obviously you're very focused on learning more about it, and it seems like you're on a journey to just understand yourself deeper, which is awesome. You'll start becoming aware of these things as they arise, and you might even see it happen. You might get to a point where you can actually see yourself being distracted as it's happening, and then be able to revert your energy back to the thing you're focusing on.
That would be awesome. I'm pretty sure that would be the end all be all to my distractibility problems. And there's other things that come with ADHD. Like I said before, it's not just something that makes you not able to focus on things. It's much more than that. But that would be a big help with a lot of stuff.
And it wouldn't be like that every time, though. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be like that every time, but it's like a muscle that you can practice. And the only reason I'm saying this, and I obviously acknowledge that I don't have ADHD, so I don't, I can't fully put myself in your shoes. But the only reason I mention this is because over the last 6 or 7 months, and it's one of the reasons I started this podcast, I've been a pretty regular meditator, 20 minutes every morning and maybe 10, 15 minutes every night. And what I've noticed is I'm slowly becoming more and more aware of how my brain works and how my thoughts are forming as they're forming, and I'm able to kind of see things from an outside perspective to where, for instance, something happens, right? Someone cuts you off in traffic, and your reaction might be fuck you, and you curse or whatever, you slam on your brakes, and you get totally you get flustered from it, right? You have an emotion because of what happened. You emotionally react to it. And over time, what I've noticed is when those moments happen, I actually see the moment happen, and I feel the impulse to emotionally react, and I'm actually able to bypass it. And it's weird, man. It's weird, and the only reason I'm saying it is just keep going down the road you're going down, man. Keep seeking to improve, because I feel like just already those seeds of awareness and being able to be a little more mindful about where your mind is going is going to build in you, and I feel like that can only get better,
I feel the same way, and to be honest, I've only really been on this path for maybe about 6 or 7 months.
I was going to ask you how recent this was, so that makes sense. 6 or 7 months, okay.
Yeah, it's months since that emotional breakdown that I was talking about earlier, and then shortly after that, maybe like a month later, after doing some minor research, I went to my doctor and started telling him some stuff. Like, look, like I just, help me. There's I got this, and there's this, and there's this, and we took he knows that I was diagnosed when I was a kid, and he's like, we're gonna do another test, take this questionnaire, tell me about this, and tell me about that, and he's like, we'll start you on a low dosage of Adderall, and we'll go from there. So it's only been 6 or 7 months, and believe me, I'm in a world of a different place now than I was before this happened. It's just the amount of progress that I've made already is great, and I'm not there yet. And I want to be able to just keep working on myself, and I want to be able to. I'd love to get to that point of mindfulness where you're talking about where you're aware and you're just completely like aware of everything that's going on. You can see yourself even get distracted. That would be great, and I'd be totally interested in pursuing it more. But again, that thing that I brought up with stimulation and rewards, that shot of dopamine that you need in your head that tells you that you're being rewarded for something.
Right.
It takes much more for me to get that squirt of dopamine in my head that says, "Oh, you did something right.
Right.
Oh, this is great. Like, this is the reward system in action. Like, you're learning something new. You're getting something done. Here's your reward. Here's that little squirt of dopamine that you need to let you know that you're on the right path."
Sure.
In terms of mindfulness, I would need to fully immerse myself in it with nothing else going on in my life for me to get to the amount of progress that the average person would get to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. It absolutely makes sense, man. Absolutely. I think you just go, you go step by step, man, and it's really cool you're sharing this, man, because I feel like it's funny because that guy, there was someone that commented on Instagram today and said some, stupid shit, and he looked like like the name, his username just looked like he made it up just to fuck with people on the internet. So I didn't give it much thought. But that is a sentiment that you hear more and more. Like, a lot of people are coming out and starting to say, like, I think it's possible that ADHD can sometimes be overprescribed. That's definitely that's a fair assessment. But to say that, like,
I totally agree.
Yeah, to say the majority of people who people legitimately have it, and I think a lot of people are in situations like you where maybe they weren't even ever diagnosed as a kid, and they've just struggled their entire life, and some have kept it together more than others, but they've just never known that there was a name for what they were going through.
I'm glad that you brought that guy up. Brought that up, and I guess I'll explain it for people who are listening who may not know what's going on. Brian posted about this podcast by saying he was going to talk to me, and we were primarily going to be talking about my story of my history with ADHD, and someone commented the usual. It's a pretty cliche argument against ADHD at this point, and I've heard it a million times from people who, for some reason, just don't think it's real. The guy said, what did he say? He's like, I honestly think that this is a made-up condition. Some kids just need their asses beat more than others.
What was his username? Wasn't his username something like? I was like.
His username was "Don't hate me, hate my maker."
Yeah.
So I'm familiar with trolls. Trust me, I know a thing or two about trolls. I didn't really take it personally as much as I know people act like that when they see things online. But when you said, to go back to what you said earlier about reacting emotionally, that's another thing that's another very predominant symptom of people with ADHD. It's impulse control. It's a very that's probably one of the most I think there's like 4 different types of ADHD. I could be totally wrong with that, but there's ADHD inattentive. Basically, what that means that you have trouble with paying attention, and then there's ADHD impulsive, and there's a couple other more. But Adderall was pretty much created to, from what I understand, it's created to stop people from like just giving into their impulses. People were just way too impulsive, and they would say things. And I don't know if you've ever had a conversation with someone with really bad ADHD, but they tend to like interrupt you a lot, and they tend to finish your sentences, and they tend to give you this very anyway. So and they go on to what they need to say.
Wow, that's so that's so true. That's so true, and that's also true of just being distracted anyway too. Like I've been in situations where I've said that, but not like what you're saying. But I've been around plenty of people that do that all the time, and it's very true.
Yeah, and there's been a couple social quirks that I've had over the years that I've kind of like trained myself to not do, and I try not to, and I consciously try not to do it. I think I'm doing a pretty good job at not interrupting you or like letting you finish what you want to say.
Yeah, man, you're doing great.
Well, this isn't my first podcast, by the way, so I think I have an idea of how it works. But still, like the impulse is still there. There's something about it where I feel like I know what you're going to say, and I know what you're getting at. And some people give that away really well, and they go, and it's the way they start their sentence. Like, you just know what they're going to say, and then, like, for me, it's like, I just want to move on. Like, stop talking. I know what you're going to say. I get it. I know what you're going to say. You're going to say this. Here's my response.
Yeah.
For me, that's always been the case. But for other people, it's just like they can't do it, and that can lead to a lot of social issues too. And like that's what I was telling you in the email about that. Like it creates a lot of social problems for people, and it's not uncommon for people with ADHD to experience like some sort of loneliness or some kind of invisible shield where like people they know either start drifting away from them because it's kind of hard to socially interact with them, or they just don't want to engage them in the first place.
Yeah.
It's those little things that kind of make it hard for people with ADHD, and because people are nice and they don't want to correct you or call you out on your rude behavior or the way that you're acting. Some people just want to kind of like walk away, like I'm just not going to talk to that guy or something along those lines. There's 2 things. There's the impulse thing that I was telling you about, and it makes people a very common thing is just people that just interrupt you when you're talking.
Yeah.
And then there's this thing about active listening that I know about. It's and I'm not sure if I'm guilty of it myself, but I'm way more aware of it than I have been. If you ever try talking to someone who doesn't look or act like they give a shit what you're saying, it's hard to talk to them, and it's discouraging. So you're not really into like whether you recognize it or not, you become less interested in interacting with that person because like I don't know, they're always doing something when I'm talking to them. It's hard to talk to them.
Right.
He's always fidgeting on his phone, or he's always like tapping his foot, or he just can't sit still, or there's just something about the way that I talk to him that makes me uncomfortable, and that's what creates a lot of problems for kids when they're younger. People just kind of just don't want to like hang around them as much.
And being at that age too, like kids are just brutal anyway. Like anything out of the ordinary will get picked apart and
Exactly.
ruthlessly made fun of. So that's rough.
And I feel bad for people like that, and it happens. And I just like, I don't think I've suffered from those things as bad as some people. I know I have a lot of weird quirks that I notice that kind of like make people raise their eyebrows at me in the way I act. But that's just like at a certain point, that's just who I am. I'm not gonna not accept the certain ways that I act unconsciously. I just can't control it.
Right.
But for people, I know people, and I'm guilty of not wanting to engage them any further. I'm one of those people. It's very difficult, but I feel for them, and I feel bad for people who have to deal with this kind of stuff, and that's why I try to talk to people online as much as I can to kind of help put things in perspective for them. And I'm not claiming to be an expert on ADHD or anything. I just know what I've experienced, and I know what other people are going through. And once you talk to other people that know exactly what you're going through, you just kind of want to help out.
Totally, man. Totally. And it's what's cool about it with social media and just how connected we are nowadays is I'm obsessed with this concept of telling your story and just sharing a little bit more of your life, because I think we're all voyeuristic in nature. So a lot of people will never put themselves out there. They might want to, but they always think they have to produce if I'm gonna film myself, it's got to be interesting. But the amount of people that are watching people eat on Snapchat or people grocery shop on Instagram stories is astounding. And with that many eyes on it, it's just sharing parts of what you're going through in life can be really illuminating for other people, because someone who's going through what you went through 6 or 7 months ago can see an example of someone who's come through it 6 or 7 months later, and that can really be inspirational for them, and it can create a sense of community where there isn't one.
You hit it right on the head. You absolutely hit it right on the head. I'm seeing people on there's a community for ADHD people on this website called Reddit. It's a giant website forum, and it's you just kind of subscribe to different topics or stuff. On this giant feed and whatever. I'm not going to go that far.
No, I know Reddit. I think most people listening will know what Reddit is.
Yeah, well, there's a pretty good community of people with ADHD on Reddit, and the stuff that I'm seeing. What's great about sharing your story and what's great about talking about it, not only is it therapeutic for me, and it's really what I'm into in terms of self-awareness and self-discovery. Because I've never had this kind of understanding of myself before.
Yeah.
That's what is so exciting about it. But and to touch on your thing about being voyeuristic and sharing your story, I'm seeing people on Reddit now that are just joining the community, and they're you can just tell they're posting the same stuff that I was posting when I first found the community. Oh my God, I thought it was just me. It's not just this thing where I can't pay attention. It's this impulse thing. It's this thing that makes me more extreme, or it's this depression. It's this thing, and a lot of people with ADHD get misdiagnosed as depressed. It kind of manifests into this weird mixture of anxiety and depression and inattentiveness, but at the same time, your neurons are shooting really hard, and you're really intense inside your body, but the rest of you is just on a different level.
Right.
But I'm seeing people on Reddit, and I'm seeing people just sharing the same stuff, and they don't know where to start, and they just sound like me. They sounded like I did before I really grabbed a grasp of ADHD and before I really knew what was going on. And I just all I want to do it just feels really good. It's just really fulfilling to answer their questions or comment on stuff. And they're look, I know exactly what you're going through. I know what this is like, and I know you thought that it was just you, but this is a problem. This is actually a neurological disorder. So just hearing that from a bunch of people, and that's what happened to me. Your first post, thankfully, enough people look at it and they commented on it.
Yeah.
Just hearing other people being no, I know exactly what you need. Here's my story, and here's how here's how much I relate to you. Here's proof. It's very therapeutic, and it's the best. That talking to people on Reddit or just in general about what's going on, along with my medication and my continued research into ADHD, has been the holy trinity for me.
Well, it distances your personal identity with the disorder. You know what I mean? When someone tells you that there's this disorder you have and that it's not you. You know what I mean? It's not Andy. Andy is something other than this. Andy has something, but it's not you, you know? And once you hear that, it alleviates so much of the pressure and a lot of the built up pain and stuff, because you realize, like, it's not you. You know, like, it's, you know?
Yeah.
So that...
It's empowering in the purest form. You don't feel helpless anymore.
Right.
You start building from that, and you're like, oh, wait, well, there's some other stuff that I go through. Do you guys go through it? And whether they say yes or no, it's like, all right, well, there's another block of self-discovery that I know. What about this? And it's just like, it's the cheapest form of psychotherapy that you can get without health insurance.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy? You know what's crazy about it too? Like, whenever something happens, and you know, for you it's ADHD. For other people, it might. And this is, I'm not talking specifically about having like a mental disorder. I'm talking about what you said about wanting to, like, self-inquiry and self-awareness and wanting to understand yourself on a deeper level. The impetus to do that, for most people that ever get there, is usually something like, you know, having something like that happen with your mental health or your physical health, or going through some life-changing thing that basically shakes your foundation to where you actually have the catalyst to want to look deeper inside yourself. But you know, it's crazy to me how few people out of all the billions of people on Earth get to that point. Maybe more so in the East, but here in the West, like, everyone's so caught up in their roles in society and like their conditioning and what they've just, you know, what their mom did and what their dad did, and then what they've just everyone's on this almost, it seems like, a predetermined trajectory, and I don't know how many people really ever like stop, look around, and actually question, like, where am I? What am I? Where am I going?
Yeah.
What is this all really about? I think most people put those questions off because they got to go to college and get good grades so they can get a good job, and they got to keep that job, and they got to move up in the company, and now it's time to get married, and now you got to have kids. And wait, but the kids are growing up.
Or they're just scared.
Or they're just fucking scared. Yeah, or they're scared to look. Yeah, that's true too. I didn't think of that. That's true too. Some people might be scared to try to look deeper inside.
I think that was pretty much that was part of me. I got caught up in the daily hustle of things, but like, no one wants to go down that path, and I could possibly find something out about myself, or, like, you know, that may be unsavory, that may be bad. God forbid that I find, you know, some truth about myself.
Yeah, you find your humanity, you know.
It's another thing that you got to worry about, and then you got to go to work in the morning.
I know, man. I know. It's crazy. But you know what? There's this great quote from there's this Buddhist teacher named Chogyam Trungpa, and he said something like, if you can avoid starting down a spiritual path, do it. Because once you start down the path, he was like, if you can, basically he's saying, like, if you can get through life just sleepwalking and going through it, like, it's so much easier than having to actually question deeply, like, your existence and what this all means and come to an understanding. But the gifts of actually going through it and committing yourself on some level to, like, understanding yourself on a deeper level, and just this lifelong process of, you know, you're never done. Like, you're never, like, when we were younger, we thought we'd grow up and we'd turn 18 and then we were an adult, right? Or then 21, we could drink and then we were an adult. And then 30, like, oh, you have it all together. But you're never done. It's a constant state of change and work in progress. So the more engaged you can be in that, I feel like the more benefit you're going to get out of the whole experience of just being alive. But with that comes along all of, like, the anxiety and the depression and the past traumas and the fear and the pain and all of those different things that you have to be able to hold as well, to be able to get to the place of, like, tranquility and peace and understanding and wisdom and all those things. Like, you have to go through all of it, and that's the tough part for people.
No one's ever said that self-enlightenment was, like, an easy path. I can't speak in terms of, like, a spiritual level, but, like, I had to go through hell to kind of get to this level of self-awareness, and I'm only 6 months in.
Yeah.
it's a painful process for me. I had to hit rock bottom and had go through a number of things where I was just kind of beating myself down, and there's a lot of pain involved. And I think that's what makes people. I think once you finally reach that point, that's what makes you want to start discovering more stuff about yourself, and that's what starts like encouraging you, like to kind of say like, you know, like I had to like understand a little bit more about myself, or I got to understand like what's going on here, and like for some people it's medical reasons, some people it's a life trauma, some people it's money, for whatever reason. Mine just happened to be ADHD. And I'm not saying that it was the cause of everything that was wrong in my life, but it was the root of a lot of stuff that was contributing, that was like kind of pushing me towards like, that was holding me back.
Yeah, it was a big domino. It was a big domino that when you knocked over a bunch of other ones too. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm not perfect by any means. I'm not here to promote my self-help book where like I reached the top of the mountain from the bottom, and you know you can too.
Yeah.
But I'm still not there, and I'm not perfect. I still need to work on myself in terms of my impulsivity, my short temper, and a lot of other stuff. But like I'm on my way. I'm here learning, and I'm here talking about people, and I'm trying to take every opportunity that I.
Do you ever try to do like yoga or Tai Chi or anything like that?
Yeah, actually, I've been doing yoga with my girlfriend every night, or not every night. Honestly, I just lied my fucking ass off.
I've been doing yoga every night, bro. I just went to teacher training.
Last week, I did it every night of the week. Last week, and then Friday came, and then my girlfriend continued to do it, and I am in the middle of a very busy semester where I don't have much time to sleep. And I'm not making up excuses, but yes, yoga has been very good for me. I mean, not just physically, mainly physically, because I have trouble sleeping at night.
Yeah, it's so good to do before you go to bed, man.
Yeah, dude, like it just. Weed has helped, and then if you do yoga, like even after you smoke, it's even better.
Yep.
And like you'll get the best night's sleep that you've ever gotten. And I can't say that yoga's helped me find myself. I haven't really like found myself mentally, but it definitely makes you more aware of your body, of all the stuff that like, oh my god, I forgot that I could use this part of my body.
I'll give you a little frame of reference to like use next time you're doing yoga to try to key your mind into it as well. The idea is like you're going through these poses, and the idea is to follow your breath through the poses. So to try to create a breath that's like the ocean going in and out, like very oceanic. So instead of because you have a lot of tension in your muscles, it's tough, your legs are shaking in different positions, it's hard. So the challenge is to keep your breath steady and then stay connected, like focusing on your breath through all the different poses. So inevitably what will happen is you'll have this thought and you'll be like, fuck, my leg is shaking, it's like super sore, I can't, I don't want to do this or whatever. And that's an opportunity to just try to focus on breathing. And that's what actually creates the mental benefit of yoga as well. It's just more, it's basically a moving meditation. You're just focusing your mind on what you're doing in the moment rather than doing what you're doing in the moment but being distracted and having your mind elsewhere.
I'm aware that the breathing is key, and just being like, I know that the whole practice of yoga is to help you, like it helps you become more aware of every part of your body that you use. But the breathing is the hard part for me. I don't know what it is. It's like I'm trying to get in this position, and by the time I actually get into it, like the instructor's into her next move. So I gotta like hurry up, and
yeah.
I gotta catch up, and then by the time I get into there, she's on to the next one. And so like it's me trying to be conscious of my breath. Believe me, it's me going like, trying to keep it steady, but it's just because like it's a little bit more difficult for me. I'm shorter. I'm a shorter person, so like I guess getting into certain positions is just really hard for me.
You should try to slow it down a little bit, man. You slow it. I think you should try to slow it down a little bit. If you could like slow the sequence of movements down, so you can actually take the time to like get comfortable in a position, and then move into the next position. And then once you learn that position and you can get comfortable with it going at a slower pace, then you can move it up to speed. I think you would get way more benefit doing it that way than trying to keep up with something that's like too fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally get you. My girlfriend has to press pause at certain points where I'm just getting flustered. I'm getting a little frustrated because it's just like there's some very simple poses that I feel like I should be able to do, and I can't. And then there's more complex poses that for some reason I can do, and like I'm holding it. I'm flexible in terms of like. I can bend down and I can probably put my hands flat on the floor without bending my knees. But then sitting Indian style or sitting with my crossed legs is a pain. Like my legs just won't go down.
Yeah.
Even if I'm completely relaxed, they're just kind of sticking up and not touching the floor.
Sure. Usually people either have really tight hamstrings or really tight hip flexors. So it's like. And also, you mentioned you're shorter, so you have shorter legs, so you there's less distance in general for your upper body to go to, and you're just naturally more flexible in that area. Everyone's different as far as where they're flexible and where there's not. Dude, we've been going for an hour and 15 minutes. Crazy.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it to me.
Yeah. So I mean, what's next? Where do you want to go now? What's your focus right now? You said you're in school again and doing that, so that's awesome, obviously. And what's what are you looking to do with that? And kind of what does the next 6 months to a year look like for you?
As someone who's kind of come back from like a pretty far pit, the first time I feel like the sky's the limit for me. And that's actually like where I'm kind of conflicted at this point. I don't know what's going to happen next. I just feel like there's so many possibilities now that I can catch up on. There's a lot of regular stuff that my friends or you or people without ADHD that did their entire lives without with ease. They didn't really think twice about it. And there's certain things by having ADHD that stops you from doing it, those things. And I can't give you a particular example, but all I know is that there are a lot of projects that I was very, very passionate about for a good month that never got finished because of this. And when I look back at it, some of these things, like there's like one or two screenplays that like I know that someone else is going to come out with at some point, and I'm even seeing things. I'm seeing things on getting online. I'm seeing TV shows like becoming like closer and closer to the concepts that I have. I'm like, oh shit, someone's eventually gonna come out with the concept of the show that I like totally came up with before and whatever. So like there's I think next for me personally is just catch up on my passion projects that I just couldn't get done.
That's awesome, man.
Mainly the screenplay stuff. That's what I'm really passionate about. Like I really like telling my stories. I really like getting people invested in stories that are about real life and stuff like that. And I love comedy. So there's stuff that was put on the back burner for a little bit that I'm finally starting to come out of the haze. I'm starting to come out of the cobwebs where I'm like, okay, like what can I get done now? And the first thing that came to mind was like we should probably go back to screenwriting. We should probably start doing that stuff. And I'm not gonna lie, I have other stuff that I'm doing. I have other projects that food blog, and I have there's just like stuff that I do on social media and stuff like that that's picked up really well. Fortunately, it doesn't require a ton of effort. But the first thing to keep in mind when I finally realized that was I need to go back to school, and I need to finish these screenplays.
Nice, man.
And school is taking up a lot of my time. School is taking up. I'm a full-time student and I'm a full-time employee at the same time. So all the stuff that comes with that, I need to start giving up my time. And that's another thing that people with ADHD cannot do. It's like schedule stuff. They can't get stuff in order, or it's just harder for us to kind of put down and sit down and be like, all right, I need to give this amount of time to this and this amount of time to that.
Right.
This amount of time to this.
Right.
It's more like a barrage of like, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to look to my right and I'm going to try to get this done at the same time, or I'm going to do this, and that's another thing I need to work on. But things are looking much better than they did before.
Good, man.
I'll tell you that much.
The one thing that I would say, because what would be really cool would be to do like another one of these in like another 6 months, to see how everything's going, And the other thing that I would say, because you mentioned like coming out of the haze, right? So I would try to like be mindful of, if you can think of it from time to time, and maybe you like write it down or something if it speaks to you, but being aware of the differences in your experience now and as you continue to progress from where it was, and not just like the blanket of like being aware of how everything comparatively sucked then, now is getting better, but like the little nuances, like, oh, like yellow didn't look as bright as it was before, or whatever it might be. Just trying to notice those little things, because that's gonna build your ability to focus and be more aware, and also just your appreciation of like this whole moment in time of your life and this whole journey. So like the more awake you can go through it, the better. And then the other thing that I would say is don't ask too much of yourself at once, because the thing that you mentioned about you guys, or not you guys, that sounds so fucked up. I didn't mean that. You like people with ADHD. Yeah. What do you mean, you people? No, the people with ADHD. One of the things that you said they tend to struggle with is needing a lot of stimulation, which if you're also saying that people with ADHD tend to have trouble scheduling things, you're mixing two things where like I could see you getting to a point inadvertently where you would totally overschedule yourself and you're just trying to do too much. So I would say just like take it slow, and you probably already are, but that's just me as like a friend, hearing this and just giving you like some advice.
Yeah, and trust me, I'm totally right there with you. I don't want to overwork myself, but the excitement from the little progress that I've already made has just kind of given me such a boost where like things are. I feel like I can take on a lot more, and part of it is me just wanting to play catch up. And I've already done that with a lot of stuff. There's some other stuff that I'll mention at some other point that I've gotten much better at, or just stuff that I need my attention really bad, that I just ran towards as soon as like I could and got it done.
Sure.
But yeah, I know what you mean. Like I don't. That's one thing I'm keeping an eye out for. It's just like you're doing well, but just like.
It's like consistency more than anything, man. It's consistency more than anything. With anything in life, that's what I'm realizing more and more. Like it applies to every situation. It's like if you can only do like whatever you can do to be consistent, that's like the thing to do, And because that's going to bring you results over time, not like short bursts of a lot of energy, but something consistent done, day after day. But dude, this was great. This was awesome. Let's definitely do another one, like another 6 months for sure. And I'll do a little outro to this, and then like send me. You already sent me all your stuff, so I'll get all your social media stuff too, and I'll put it at the bottom of the episode. But thanks, man. This was great.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. And congratulations on having your podcast and everything that you're doing out there. I haven't seen you in a long time.
Thanks so much again, guys, for listening. I hope you really enjoyed it. If you guys have a suggestion on any topic you'd like to see me cover on the podcast, please feel free to shoot me a message on social media. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Brian Henninger NYC, and you can find me on Snapchat at B Henninger NYC. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you again soon.